As a criminal defense attorney, one of the questions that I get asked by family, friends, people who, are really involved in the law is, Veronica, how is it that you defend someone that you know is guilty? And when I get asked that question, I like to talk about it, and I think about the first big trial that I was assigned to. It was an attempted murder case, and I remember being really excited at first. I mean, this was my first big trial, and it was a solo trial, just me on my own. But then I read the police reports, and I remember just feeling crestfallen when I saw the police reports. Now, the basic allegations of the case, and along with the police reports, I read witness statements, transcripts of a hearing where they testified pretty credibly. But the basic gist of it was this. There was a security guard off duty with his wife and her friend that were at their apartment complex unloading groceries one night when they came upon my client, who is a gang member, and was tagging their apartment complex, graffitiing his gang moniker, his gang name, and his gang's name with spray paint. And they saw him, they told him to stop, and he started shooting at them. The security guard retrieved his service weapon, pulled it out. He fired some shots back, and actually my client ended up with one shot to the leg, and he actually kind of dragged himself next door, which happened to be a district attorney's house, and he was apprehended there. So I read that and I thought, well, I mean, this isn't good. This is not good. We have 3 very credible witnesses, no criminal history. There's no issue with the identification. What the heck is our defense? And I went to go see the client. Scary looking guy. He had tattoos, gang tattoos, poorly done tattoos all over him, including on his face. And I asked him, what happened? And he said, he'd smoked some weed earlier that day. He didn't remember everything, but he told me that they shot at him first for no reason. I asked him, well, why would they do that? He had no clue. So it was an attempted murder case. He was facing life, and the prosecution would not give us any offer at all. So we had no option. I felt like we had no defense, but we had to go to trial. We had no option. I didn't have much time to prepare. I had just been assigned this case, but I had to give it my very best shot. And I remember that at the beginning, right before we started the trial, the judge called me, he called the DA into chambers and asked the prosecutor what the case was about. The prosecutor told the judge basically what I just told you. And he asked me, and I'll never forget his exact words, Miss Barton, how do you intend to prevail? And I mean, I was a pretty new attorney at the time. I probably turned 5 shades of red. And I said something like, Your Honor, I'd rather not reveal the defense attorney theory at this time, or something like that. I mean, the truth was that I had no freaking clue. My client said he was innocent, but he looked guilty. And the trial, it starts. I couldn't get him to sit up straight in his chair. We have these 3 upstanding citizens that don't have tattoos on their faces, as well as a slew of cops, detectives, all testifying against him. But, through the course of preparing frantically for this trial, and during the trial, I realized that there were some discrepancies, and I did start to form a theory. I mean, my client had said he was innocent, but he wasn't exactly helpful. He just said he was innocent. They started shooting at him for no reason, which just, it didn't seem plausible. It didn't seem something that I was convinced by, let alone the jury. But, I saw that, for one thing, the witnesses, so imagine that this happens to you. And this is always what I try to do when I'm trying to figure out what is the truth of one of the cases and the situations. So imagine that you are the security guard, his wife, the friend, total upstanding citizens. This freak thing happens. A scary gang member starts shooting at you for no reason. The husband shoots back a few times. You don't run back inside, right? You would run inside, you would lock the door, you would call 911. It would scare you shitless. But they didn't do that. Now, I mean, people react differently to different things, but also, so you have to lock, if you're a security guard, or if, depending on your type of weapons permit, you have to lock your gun up a certain way. And the security guard would have had to have his locked up in the trunk of his car. And I know they were unloading groceries, but it has to be in a case, and that also has to be locked. I just don't see how he would have had enough time to get it out. And so that made me think, okay, maybe there is something else to this. And then additionally, I noticed that some of the shell casings from the security guard's gun were missing. And obviously there was a lot of chaos after this. There were a lot of people around and all. But it just made me think, maybe there was something else to this. And I went with my theory. We had nothing to lose. We had no deal to take. But my theory became, you know what, and what I really think happened is that he was there. My client was there. He was tagging. He had a gun with him, sure. All the little gang members do. And these three people see him. Now, the security guard, and I've had many clients who are security guards, so I know, he knows these kind of guys come around his house. He sees the graffiti that they leave, so of course he's scared. He doesn't lock his gun typically in the trunk, and he didn't lock it in the trunk that time. He had it with him. When he sees this guy, maybe my client made a furtive gesture or something, I don't know. Furtive gesture, like he reached or something. And I think the security guard started shooting. Now, the only person who was shot was my client. So I think he realized after this, oh fuck, I shot a kid. And he was worried about getting in trouble. Nobody was afraid of the gang member, the kid, because he was shot. And I think that the security guard was a little bit frantic. Maybe he did pick up some of the shell casings, and they made up this story. No, I don't know. But we did end up getting a not guilty verdict. And the thing is that case made me realize that we as defense attorneys, we have no idea if someone is telling the truth, no matter what the evidence looks like. People lie for all kinds of reasons, and we can only guess what their motivations are. I mean, that story I just told you, that's my best guess as to what happened, but I don't know. Our job as attorneys is to represent everybody in exactly the same way. Our job is to use the same professionalism, the same advocacy, the same bravery that we would for our own loved ones, or that we'd want someone to do for us. How we would want to be represented. I mean, we're not judges. We're not here to judge you. We're not juries. It's not really my job as a defense attorney to figure out what happened. Yes, I would like to, and it can benefit my client if I come up with some theories, but I'm not here to figure out if he's guilty or not and judge him. And we don't pick and choose our clients based on who we think is innocent. And sometimes, as I found, until you get very, very far into the case, you really can't tell. Everyone deserves a zealous advocate. Someone on their side, fighting for them, standing up for them, defending them, and protecting them as best we can. That was an early lesson for me. And my answer to the question of how do you defend someone who you think is guilty is this. I have no idea who's guilty or who's not, and I give them all the same.